Hey, I think I'm live. Yay! Sorry, it's a little late, a few minutes late, but I'm here. And I wanted to try something a little different from what most people here know of me. And this video looks a little weird, so hopefully it's broadcasting okay. I don't see anybody coming on. Oh, there's Jen. Hi, Jen. It's so good to see you. And that looks like Ricky. All right, so Judy, hi Judy. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the rest of what I do. Most of you know that I do tapping, I do EFT tapping, but that is just part of a much bigger thing that I do, which I've just been thinking about during this time of isolation. Like, what in the world is this thing that I do? Hey, Kay. And I've decided to call it mindfulness. What I do encompasses so many different modalities and different ideas from different places that it's kind of hard to describe. So I've been trying to describe it succinctly to people. So I'm deciding to call it embodied mindfulness. And this comes out of a history of all these different kind of things that I've learned as I've been on my own trauma recovery route. And also, those of you who know me well know that I have a bunch of adopted kids who also have traumatic backgrounds. And so I spent like 20 years in my little home laboratory learning how to help them with their trauma issues too. So between my issues and their issues, I gained a lot of experience. Now, I also have a background in theater, and currently I'm a student of psychodrama. And so I'm learning all these different techniques. But the most important things that I learned were two things in all of this in terms of what helps with trauma. And of course, trauma is just like extreme stress. So really, these things help with any level of stress, even just basic levels of stress. Right now, a lot of people are experiencing heightened levels of stress. Even people who haven't experienced like extremely traumatic things in their lives are experiencing this as a traumatic experience. So I wanted to give us some tools. I'm just going to throw a bunch of tools out here for folks today to use to help settle down the body's stress response. And the two things that I use the most are mindfulness, and a mindfulness practice, and getting things inside the body, so somatic or experiential modalities that get us focused inside our bodies and using our bodies and moving our bodies. So in all of my research, everything comes down to those two things. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. Everything comes down to, is it mindfulness based and is it body based? Is it in your body? Is it bringing your attention to the here and now? So those everything. I've researched so much stuff. Guys, I could have like a doctorate if I cared about such things on this stuff. But I don't. And everything comes down to those two things. So I've decided to call what I do embodied mindfulness. Now I want to talk about I want to do a little bit of what we call psychoeducation for a minute. And I want to teach about our brains, and I want to use my hand as a model. So this is an idea that comes from Dr. Dan Siegel. He's a neuroscientist, and he is just he's a brilliant scientist. And I love his stuff. So, and he has a great video. Maybe I'll drop this video in the comments afterwards. So I want to teach about the brain and use the hand as a model. So if we think about our hand and we make a fist like this, you're going to put your thumb across here and roll your fingers down here. Then this becomes the brain, and it's like this. So like these fingers are our forehead. This is inside the middle part of the brain. This would be the brain stem in the back of the brain. And if we think about what happens to our brain during times of stress, where I'll walk you through this. So this is the reptilian part of the brain here, the brain stem, and this is where all those like absolutely reflexive um, things happen. This is why your heart beats. This is why you breathe. But this is also why you have that fight or flight response, because this just responds to just abject fear and terror, and it just runs your body on automatic when it needs to. Now here we'll add your limbic system in, okay? And your limbic system kind of runs across this whole part of your brain. It includes your amygdala, includes your hippocampus, and this is where emotions and emotional regulation happen. So if this is out of whack here, it means our emotions are dysregulated. This controls memory, it controls sensory experience, different types of memory. So it also controls sensory experiences. Um, and this is why, if you have a traumatic experience, you may not actually have a great memory of the experience itself, but you'll remember how you felt. You might remember a smell. You might remember a color. You know, say you're in a car accident with a red car. Red might be significant. It might be like ingrained in that memory. And that's why, because that's all held here. Now, this is the thinking part of our brain. This is the mapping, the planning part. This is the part that helps us make good decisions. It helps us make choices. It helps us plan for the future. It helps us think through things rationally and make sense. This is where our common sense lives, right here. Um, and so what you can see is when the brain is functioning, I'm having trouble with my right and left side of the screen here. I'm sorry. So when our brain is functioning well, this is where right here where it belongs. And you can see here that this part of the brain connects the limbic system and the top of the brain stem, right? Like this is all connected. And we would say that it's integrated. So when our brain is functioning the way it's supposed to, well, it's always functioning the way it's supposed to. When our brain is functioning in a safe way, it's well integrated. We're able to think through things. We're able to regulate our emotions. These responses are pumping our heart. They're helping us breathe. They're not throwing us into a fight or flight response. So this is kind of a healthy, safe brain. Now, what happens when we get into a stressful situation is we flip our lid, right? And this this part of our brain kind of goes offline. Then this part where our emotional center, this gets completely dysregulated, and and it may be so dysregulated that it goes offline and opens us up to these purely traumatic responses. So I say that this is not abnormal because this is absolutely normal. This is the way our brain was designed to function. And it's a beautiful design. It's wonderful. It's just that we get stuck sometimes here, or we get stuck here, which is a disintegrated state, okay? Because we've unhooked this, and there's a lot of reasons why that happens, like chemically and genetically inside our brains. Um, so our goal is always to try to re-regulate by reintegrating this. And what I found is the key to integration, the key to keeping this here is mindfulness. The key to regulating this is being inside your body, because this is where emotions are actually sensations in our bodies. And we know that because we say things like, I feel like I got kicked in the gut, right? I've got butterflies in my stomach. We express our emotions with like these weird things that are going on inside our body. It's the only way we have to express it. We don't know other words for that, right? So we use these weird phrases, but that's because our emotions actually live in our body. They're body responses. They're our heart beating in a certain way, right? So, you see the love of your life and your heart starts to beat. That's an emotion and it's a body response. It's a physiological response. So we're going to regulate this, our emotional center, by getting in our bodies, and we're going to reintegrate this by getting into our mind in the here and now. So, mindfulness is all about just being in the here and now, right? It's not necessarily a spiritual experience. It can be. It's not necessarily. It's there. There's nothing woo or weird about it. It's simply like getting those racing thoughts to stop racing, to stop worrying about the past. Or, a lot of times if we're in the past, we're in regrets. We're thinking about things that we did wrong. We're thinking about things we could have done differently. We're thinking about the could haves and the should haves and the regretful things. So we're in the past. Sometimes we're in the future where we're thinking about what can happen, what might happen, what will happen. And there's all this worry and concern there, right? So what we need to do is bring it all to the here and now, is bring it all to this moment right now. Am I safe right here? What's happening right here, right now? So here's the cool thing, right? So you can see how that just integrates everything. It integrates all this regulated stuff because a lot of times our regrets about the past, they're just cranking around in here in our dysregulated emotionals. Our worries about the future a lot of times have to do with this brainstem stuff. Like we're afraid, especially now that I'm going to die, someone I love is going to die. I'm going to experience incredible loss. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my income, right? So this is a worry of the future, and these are like, I want to fight this or I want to run from it responses, right? So when we get right here, right now, today, in this moment, in this minute, we're integrating. And we're going to do that inside of and so that's the mindfulness piece. And we're going to do that inside of our bodies. We're going to let our bodies experience what it feels like to feel integrated. We're going to go to our physiological responses and know, what does it feel like to feel integrated? So there's a lot more education I could do about this, but I'm just going to go right into some exercises that I can show you that will help you feel this in your body. Uh, so the first thing I want us to do is start off and get inside our bodies. Oh, that's the other thing that I did want to say is that our bodies are always in the here and now, right? We don't leave our bodies in the past. Our bodies do not live in the future. Our bodies are always right here, right now. So that's why we want to embody our mindfulness. That's why we want to get inside our body in order to be mindful, because our body can't be anywhere or any time except right here, right now. It's the only place our body can be. So if we're in our body, if we're focused inside our body and not in our head and our thinking, processing, grinding head, but we're in our body and just feeling that and living that and being present there, then we're going to be in the here and now. That is a mindfulness practice, is being in your body. So that's why I kind of combine these things of mindfulness and embodied practices, because the body is always, always, always in the here and now. All right, so oh, now we're going to take a breath together. As you do that, just try to get into your body. Now, I'm doing this video inside a group of people that knows how to be mindful, that knows how to get inside our bodies, which is lovely. So we can get there a lot more quickly. Another way we can do this is just kind of start out, rub our hands together. Maybe as you're doing that, close your eyes and focus on your hands. Feel your hands rubbing one against the other. Our hands are right here in the here and now. This is comforting for a lot of reasons. I call all these exercises giving ourselves some loving and not weird self-touch. Especially now, some of us may be extremely isolated. I happen to have 11 of my kids home with me. I'm not feeling very isolated. But we may be touch deprived, and so these are ways we can give ourselves a little bit of touch. Now, there's a doctor named Ron. Gosh, I can't remember his last name right now. Anyway, Dr. Ron. And he has a technique called havening techniques, and it involves this self-touch. Part of his exercises are this self-touch. If we move the hands a little quicker, Then we move to the face and just gently stroke your face. And if you close your eyes and feel the touch, notice what it feels like on there. If you're feeling lonely or isolated and you don't have other people around you and you're a little touch deprived, you could imagine someone you love or caring about you doing this for you, gently touching you. So there's nothing sexual or sensual about this. It's just touch. It's just our nerves feeling our presence. And you might like the way it feels to go a little bit higher on the scalp, maybe run behind the ears, um, forehead, across the temples, down the cheeks, onto the chin. Gentle, gentle touch. And alternate that with, again, energizing your hands. And then we're going to move from like shoulders down to the wrists. Just crossing your arms, and that's significant as well for the brain. Cross the arms. Just gently feel that. Try to get yourself inside that experience. If you need to close your eyes and focus on what do my hands feel like as they're touching? What are my shoulders experiencing? You know, my arms, my elbows, my forearms. What does that feel like inside of there? Appreciating it. This is a good way to practice a little gratitude too, a little self-gratitude. Thanking your hands for being gentle with you. Appreciating that touch. Feels kind and gentle. Maybe letting a little gratitude grow in your heart as you do this gentle stroking. And then back to the rubbing the hands. So that's just a little taste of something called havening. And a lot of modalities, I noticed when Ricky did her Reiki the other day, she did some things around the face and with the eyes, with the hands on the eyes. So a lot of our modalities are crossing over and we recognize these things in each other's work, right? Which is beautiful, which I love. So I want to show you next a way that when you're stressed, this is a way to hold yourself. It's called self-holding. And there's a lot of reasons why this works. A lot of these modalities, these touching modalities, work on acupressure points. A lot of them work their way through the chakras. A lot of them work their way along the vagus nerve and in our whole autonomic nervous system to help soothe and calm. So just about any energetic practice is going to work in that realm of the vagus nerve and the autonomic nervous system and these acupressure points and these chakras. All that energetic movement is significant. So when you're feeling particularly stressed, if you feel like you just can't get out of that stressed modality. These are a really good way to kind of contain yourself to help yourself feel more embodied. So it's a 5-step hold. First step is just a hand on either side of your head, just like this. Maybe your fingertips aren't quite touching at the top of the head. And then just kind of closing your eyes and breathing into your hands, holding your head till you can feel that settle. The next step would be moving the hands from front to back. So the first one is holding them side to side on the head. The next one is moving front to back. Breathing is important because, again, breathing only happens in our bodies. It doesn't happen outside of our bodies, and our bodies are always in the here and now. Our breathing tells our body that it's okay to not be stressed. It's okay to hold peacefulness and calm. And the third one is we're going to move this back hand down over the chest, down over the heart. Some of these may feel more comforting to you than others. You don't need to do all of them. You can just settle in on the ones that you like, that feel good. And then moving the hand down to the belly. Just stand up a little bit. Let's see, on here, right over the belly button. This is the most common one. You'll see a lot of folks um, work with stress disorders, work with this motion right here. And that's because our vagus nerve runs down into our gut. We're considering now our heart and our gut, kind of second and third tier brains. They're doing the job of the brain. So we're helping to regulate those. And the last one is just to move it up a little bit. Um, so just move it up on your sternum just a little bit on the over the rib cage, maybe I guess here. Key is to not just hold these positions, but to hold them in the mindful state, to breathe into them, to bring your attention to how it feels to be touched, those places. And again, maybe a little gratitude, especially with your hand over your heart, where we generally think of gratitude living. So thankfulness that we can calm ourselves, that we have it within ourselves to self-soothe. The world is crazy when no one else is helping us, when we feel lost or alone. We can soothe ourselves. So I'm sitting on a yoga ball, so that's why things are getting a little weird if I lean forward. All right, so now we're kind of nice and calm, and I want to show us one more kind of fun thing that gets us in our bodies. The thing I've been playing with hands for a long time, for a couple of years now, because hands are always in the here and now, right? And we can see them, we can manipulate them, we can feel them. So when we're talking about embodied mindfulness, focusing on our hands is a really fun, neat place to go. And it can feel safer than some other things. So I'm going to do a little hand meditation for a few minutes. Um, and so I just want you to start out just like looking at your hands, just manipulating your hands, your fingers. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do what I'm doing. Just move them in such a way and then begin kind of move them in space. If it's too much to focus on two hands, you can just focus on one hand. Just sort of move it in space. Feel it move in space. Feel your brain shift attention to your hand. Do whatever you feel like. This is your time. This is your space. This is your comfort zone. Just feel it. Feel your fingers. Stretch them. Give them a little stretch. And try to switch to your other hand. So both hands to play. Both hands get to come out and play. whatever you feel like doing with them. You want to move them way out here, move them out of the frame for you guys. You want to move them up or down, dip or rise. You want to involve your whole body in it. Really move, but focus on the hands and what they're doing and where they're going and what they feel like from the inside out. And then pick a hand and we're gonna do a little shape. Make a new shape. Make a new shape. That doesn't have to be my shape, whatever shape you want. Shape, 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 shape. Let the other hand play. Shape, 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 shape. All right. Rub them together, reintegrating, bringing everything back. We're going to close out our little embodied mindfulness meditation with one last movement. This is another one of those things you can do whenever you're feeling stressed and you just want to self-soothe. What we're going to do is we're going to make a little butterfly with our hands. So cross the hands one over the other and link the thumbs. And again, this crossing motion is good for the brain as well. And just kind of lay that over your heart. We're going to do just a little tapping here. A little tapping. So we're going to close out our meditation with this little butterfly tap. Stay here for just a moment. Breathe with that. This is tapping on some important acupressure points. They're calming and soothing. The hands being crossed helps with some cross-lateral stuff for your brain. The hand over the chest is an important point as well. The idea of just giving yourself gentle self-touch. So much good here. And adding in some nice deep breaths. See if you can get your breath to come all the way from your belly up and all the way from your nose down to your belly. As you inhale. So nice, I could lose myself in that. All right, open your eyes and gently bring yourself back. Notice some things in the room, the color of the walls. See if you can find a few things that are round. Something blue. Feel your feet on the ground, butt in the chair. Hands where they are, your body in space. Thank you so much for me today. I hope this was both brain food, educational for your brain, and fabulous for your body and your stress. And I will see you around. Take care, folks.